I'm Jillian Fortner, and welcome to Inside City Sports, an interview show produced by the students of San Diego City College. Each week, we speak to the newsmakers of the campus. Today, we are going to talk to the coach of the City Knights basketball team, Mitch Charlens. But first, we're going to give an intro to the Knights team and to the coach himself. Let's take a look.
After a year away from San Diego City College, men's basketball coach Mitch Charlens is back. And in his own words, there's no place like home. Charlens spends the last year at the University of San Diego as an assistant coach. But when the staff changed after a 15 and 16 season, that freed Charlens to come back to City. And he's ready to pick up where he left off. Charlens won over 300 games with the Knights and led the team to a 2017 state championship. He was also honored as Coach of the Year in the Pacific Coast Athletic Conference 7 times. It's no wonder City College welcomed Charlens back to walk the sidelines of Harry West Gym. For Inside City Sports, I'm Jesse Jones.
Hello, Mitch. We wanted to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Sure, thanks for having me.
And we're very excited about your return to City College because there's truly no place like home. So how does it feel to be coaching again for the City Knights?
Oh, it feels great. Yeah, that was the best. That was the best quote I could think of because it's truly home, and everyone was so welcoming even before the final announcement to return. So it's been really great. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. It does feel like home at City College. And you've been away from City College for over a year coaching at USD. So I wanted to know, how was that experience? How did you end up working with them?
So I had never looked for another job. I wasn't looking. I wasn't applying. The head coach at USD approached me and asked me to come and help him turn his program around. And it took a great deal of thought, and it took talking to my wife and seeing how that would be, because the schedule is different when you don't control it yourself, not being the head coach. So I worked through all of that, and then it was also a tough decision because of the team that we had in place here. We had recruited kids a couple of years prior, and then we didn't have a season because COVID kept us from having a season that year. Those kids stuck around to play for me, and then at the last minute, I decided to go to USD for the year. So it was a tough decision and to leave City College in the first place.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're so happy to have you back here. But I know at USD, the team finished one game below 500, but made significant improvements from the year before. So what did you learn from being an assistant coach in that program?
A lot. I didn't realize how lazy you can become when you're a head coach, when you're kind of the CEO, and you can roll out of bed and run a perfect practice in your mind because it's all of your stuff. So having to learn somebody else's system and learn how someone else does things was great.
Oh yeah, I bet. And over your career, you've really built a thriving basketball program at City College. So what do you think has been your key to your success?
All of the great student athletes. I've been lucky to have amazing young men decide to come and play for me. It's all about that. It's all about them. I don't make a single basket. I don't block a single shot. I'm just on the sideline yelling. So they make all the plays. So answer your question, it's the kids.
Yeah, but I'm sure every great team has a great coach behind them. Can you describe to us your coaching style and how does it impact and motivate your athletes for game day?
So we like to play fast, but I would say my coaching style is in your face and no passive aggressiveness. What I tell parents and I tell the kids that I'm recruiting, if you're doing something I don't like, I'm going to let you know in that moment so that we both don't have to carry that home. So I don't have to go home and be mad at my wife and the kids and kick the dog. We're going to deal with it right then and there, and they might be uncomfortable in the moment, and then they realize this is so refreshing. They know exactly where they stand, and I have such bad ADD. If I'm mad at you right now, I get it off my chest. 2 seconds later, I'm past it, and I have my arm around you. And then as soon as practice is over or a game is over, I like to have the most fun, and so I'm encouraging them to fall in love with each other and with the staff, and we just have a great time.
Yeah, I really like that style. I feel like that would work really well for a lot of people. But of course, fun, of course, yeah. You want everyone to get along. But I understand you believe creating a culture in a program is very important. Can you give us some insight into what you feel has helped you to do this at City?
Working with great coaches. So I worked for a guy, Rusty Smith, who actually, so 20 years ago I worked for Rusty Smith. He was the head coach at College of the Sequoias. And he has since retired and moved to Carlsbad. So upon my return to City College, he's going to come and work for me. But Rusty was great at teaching me that dynamic of you can be demanding of the kids, but if you can't be more demanding of them than you love them. So there's a great balance. They got to feel the love, so you can demand the most out of them.
Yes, that balance is super important. And I know every player comes from a unique background. So what do you do to break that exterior and to get to the roots of the player to excel on and off the court?
It's all of the moments in between. It's not the games. It's not practice. It's the moments where they're walking to class, or they stop by my office before or after practice, or at another time, or it's in the vans, or it's on the road. If we're taking a walk on the beach, if we're on a road trip, it's all the moments in between that I let my guard down. Also, I don't have the same coaching octave in those moments as I do in practice or a game, and I share things with them about my life and my trials and tribulations and everything else.
Yes, all that is so important for the team. But you've had quite the history coaching, which surely hasn't been without its fair share of struggles. So I was wondering, what's the hardest thing you've had to overcome in your coaching career?
It was right after we won the state championship in 2017, and Nate Edwards, who was the life, the light, the heart and the soul of our program, he was the first one to sign his letter of intent to accept a scholarship to move on from here, and he committed suicide. So it was a terrible moment. It was just, I think, a couple weeks after we won the state title. And that team, like most of our teams, that team really fell in love with one another. And Nate was the big brother. He cooked for all the guys. Coaches that were coming to recruit other guys, Nate would bring in, meal prep that he had done for anybody he would feed and take care of. So that was one of the toughest moments in my coaching career.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how hard that could have been for you and the team. And but I'm very sorry for your loss. But mental health is so important. And speaking of mental health, I know you got your bachelor's degree in psychology, which is very relatable. In what ways can understanding psychology help you as a coach?
Yeah, my father was a psychologist. He was a PhD from the University of Chicago, and I always thought I was going to follow in his footsteps and be a psychologist. And then I realized how hard that is. It's just like being a medical doctor. People don't come to see psychologists when everything is fine. So I thought, okay, let me use this in another way. Dealing with people in any industry, it's the same. If you're a coach, if you work in the media, if you sell cars, it's all that you're dealing with people. So psychology comes into play in everything.
I agree. Like psychology can apply to anything. You were once an educator here at San Diego City College. What were some of the pros and cons about being a professor?
Still a professor. So the pros are the engagement with the students. And I actually thought about this in my first maybe 10 years or so, maybe more. All of my classes were in person. And then even before COVID, we started to offer more and more online offerings. But I miss the engagement because I miss the natural conversations that spark when you're in person. So I miss that because it's the same. It's dealing with people. It was a different team that was in my health and wellness class than is on the floor when I'm coaching basketball.
Yeah, it's a completely different experience. So I was wondering, for anyone who could be interested in joining this team, what are some of the key personality traits or characteristics that you think would make an ideal candidate for recruitment?
I really like Greg Popovich had a great quote about guys that make it in his program. One of the winningest coaches in the NBA of the San Antonio Spurs and won multi-championships. He always said, guys that make it in his program can't take themselves too seriously. And I think that sums up kind of my personality. I give junk to everybody, the staff, the players, but then I allow them to give it right back to me. I mean, we get in the vans on the way to a game, and I'm starting in on everybody, including my coaching staff, and the players, they get to exhale, and so, but they give it back. And so even myself, the guys are always ready to catch me if I'm wrong or misspeak, and so I guess to answer your question, not taking yourself too seriously is probably the best quality to make it.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's been so nice getting to know you and your team, but don't worry, we're gonna have more Mitch right after the break.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes, and you come to mine. This is it, first impression, my way in. But can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or being the first one to always step up. No, that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent that is dedicated, hardworking, and determined like me.
Welcome back to Inside City. We are here with Mitch Charlens. So Mitch, you say that you develop the player to help rather than focus on the game. Can you elaborate on what this means?
Yeah, so I think it's important to teach the kids how to play, not teach them a play. And so every day in practice, we make sure that we get to competing. Just over the years, I've realized that so many coaches, and I did this early on also, I wanted to break things down into a controlled environment and do drills that only worked on a couple of movements, because I would feel better when I left practice to go home and pat myself on the back, oh, we just had a great practice because it felt controlled. But what I had learned is that feeling that I had of being uncomfortable, of what it seems chaotic the guys are playing, that's where they're getting better. That's where they're learning how to play.
Oh, thanks for explaining that. And I know you were once a basketball player yourself, and I was wondering, what was your favorite memory from being a player yourself?
I like how you say once. It was so long ago. Thanks for emphasizing that. It's how I coach now. It's the same thing. It's what I strive to build now as a coach. That was the best part. It was the relationships. It was being in the locker room. It was all those spaces in between that I was talking about, that I like to create the culture. That was what I enjoyed. I remember the van rides to games. I remember being in the hotels on the road. I remember laughing in the locker room. All of those moments is what I remember and miss about playing myself. And so that's what I try to create for these guys.
Yeah, I'm sure you're doing a great job with that. And when the day comes for you to part ways with basketball as a coach, what would you like your legacy to be? Deep question.
Yeah. I hope the guys feel loved along with all of the winning, and my legacy, what I care about is the guys transferring on and then building lives of their own. You know, so many of I've been at City College for so long. So many of my guys are now attorneys or started their own businesses and have families of their own. They've been married and all that. So one of my guys actually is an engineer and helped design the trolley system that goes up to La Jolla now. So my guy's success after basketball is just as thrilling as seeing the ball go through the rim.
Yes, for sure. Well, we thank you so much for coming here, Mitch. We're happy to have you back.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back.
If you or anyone you know is experiencing thoughts of suicide, please call the national hotline at 800-273-TALK or text COURAGE to 741-741. That's all we have for tonight's edition of Inside City Sports. Remember to follow SD City Times on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. Thanks for joining us, and good night.